Okay, so we just hit 4 o'clock, so I think we can go ahead and get started. Does that sound good, Melissa? Cool.
Sounds great.
Thank you, everyone. Welcome. This webinar, just so you know, is designed for any educators who want to learn more about Ozobot, whether you have Ozobots already and want next steps for getting started, or if you're still looking for the right ed tech tool for your students. So with that, we will go ahead and get things started. And one last time, if you just joined, be sure to introduce yourself in the chat. Select all panelists and attendees before you use the chat. So I think, Melissa, we'll start by introducing ourselves. Do you want to take the lead?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Melissa Tui. I'm the EdTech and Adoption Specialist here at Ozobot. I'm a former teacher. Taught kindergarten and first grade, was the founding coding, engineering, and design thinking teacher at a Title I school in South LA, and have coached teachers in implementing computer science. And when I'm not at Ozobot, I'm at UCLA pursuing my doctoral degree in educational leadership, where I'm studying computer science implementation in elementary schools. So I live and breathe computer science, and I'm so happy to be here with all of you today.
And I am Adrienne White. I'm Ozobot's Director of Marketing, so I have the pleasure of working not only with our educator community really closely, but also with Melissa and her very talented EDU team. I have a background in art and technology, so just before Ozobot, where I've now been for about 4 years now, I worked at another tech company, but prior to that, I worked at a contemporary art museum. So I always like to share that in that transition from art to tech, I really thought that I would miss working with artists. And instead, I was so pleasantly surprised to find that engineers are every bit as creative as the artists I used to work with. So I appreciate that Ozobot has opened my eyes to what engineering is and what it means to really create with technology. So with that, we'll go ahead and start getting into what we're covering today. So this is our agenda. Again, this is designed for educators who are looking to learn more about Ozobot. So if you've already got bots and you want to understand how to use them, this is a great place for you. Also, if you're still looking for ed tech tools or any kind of tool really to engage your students, both during this really challenging time in the ongoing effects of COVID-19 or well into the future. So what we're going to cover today, we'll start things off. Melissa's going to cover housekeeping and details for entering our giveaway, very important. From there, I'll go over an introduction to Ozobot, and I'll demo a hands-on demo of our 2 ways to code. Then Melissa is going to take the reins again and talk about our new remote-friendly Learn Anywhere lessons. It's a really great lesson series that she and the team have been developing. And we're going to try and leave a good chunk of time for Q&A, because that's part of what these webinars are designed for, to answer your questions about Ozobot or anything else you want to propose. So we'll try to leave a good chunk of time for that. And then, of course, get to the giveaway at the very end.
Great. So welcome, everybody. We just want to go over a few housekeeping items. Your camera is off and you are on mute. If you have any questions, feel free to pop them into the chat or pop them into Q&A so that we can circle back to them at the end of the webinar, just to make sure that we can see it. If we haven't answered your question, Q&A is the best place to put that. You can also upvote and comment on each other's questions within Q&A, and just make sure that if you do use the chat, change that to field to all panelists and attendees so that everyone can see what you have to say. We'd love for you to just chime in and comment on what's been working for you and what you're excited about, and even challenges that you're facing during COVID-19. We know it's a really tough time, as Adrienne said, and we want to hear more from you. On a side note, the slides and the webinar recordings will be available after the webinar on our YouTube page and our webinar page. And if you've opted in for emails from us, you'll be sent an email as well. All right, and for our giveaway, the link is not clickable in the slide deck, I believe, but let me send that link to everyone in the chat. This is a link to the Google form. We're just collecting your email address and your name just so we can get in contact with you if you are the winner. So feel free to enter your information there. Just a couple of quick reminders, there is a limit of 1 entry per attendee. If you submit multiple times, you'll be disqualified. And then we will announce the winner at the end of the webinar. So go ahead and fill in your information there. We'll close this survey in about 10 minutes at 15 past the hour. So go ahead and make sure that you are entered for a giveaway.
Great. Thank you, Melissa. And now we'll do our poll questions. And these are designed just to help us get a little bit more familiar with you guys beyond what you've already shared about yourselves in the chat. Can someone Ozobot side launch our poll? Oh, great. Thank you.
We'll give everyone about 10 more seconds to fill out that poll. It looks like we have a majority of people that already own or use Ozobots in the classroom, and the next group would be that they are brand new to Ozobot. So that's really helpful information for us to know. Great. What grades does everybody teach? We'll go ahead and launch that poll and give everyone about 30 seconds to answer. Looks like most of our participants are either K through 8 or in that 3 to 5 range. So welcome everyone. We're excited to be sharing our content with you all. And our last poll question will be, what subjects are you teaching or are you most interested in? About 5 more seconds for everyone to answer the poll question. Great, and it looks like we have interests across all the STEAM subjects, but technology being the most voted for. So thank you everyone for participating. That's helpful for us to know the context and what everyone's interested in.
Great. So I am going to jump in here and do an overall introduction to Ozobot. For those of you who are brand new to Ozobot, this is the part of today's webinar that's going to be the most relevant and useful for you. And then just so you know, I know we've got a big group of people who are already Ozobot users. The stuff Melissa's going to cover again about those remote friendly lessons is new and important for everyone. So we'll try to get to that quickly. But bear with us while we cover some of the introductory stuff for the other group. So we always want to start with this question, start at the very beginning, why robotics? So we look at this in terms of 4 pillars or benefits of robotics in education. First, robots can be a great vehicle for delivering computer science education. This is a space Melissa obviously knows a lot about, but according to a now pretty well-known Gallup poll, 9 out of 10 parents want their kids to learn computer science in school. Second, robots make computer science hands-on. They allow for real-world applications of learning and allow you to teach STEAM, not just STEM. In an era where kids and especially teens can spend up to 8 hours per day consuming content on screens, it's really important to get them, as we know, working hands-on and learning hands-on. And that can be a great way to increase engagement and even can boost retention up to 75%, according to several studies. Third, robots make it easy to teach future-ready skills. So beyond computer science, things like creativity, critical thinking, collaboration, and communication. According to the World Economic Forum, the majority of today's elementary students will go on to have jobs that don't exist yet. So instilling those future-ready skills ensures that they're able to adapt to whatever their future looks like. And then finally, this is one that we maybe don't think of when we think robotics, but social emotional well-being. The pure excitement of working with a robot, especially a tiny one that fits in your hand, can really impact your students' social emotional well-being. This is one that's really hard to quantify, but also extremely important. So we think one of our own Ozobot certified educators put it best when she said, "When I place a robot in front of a learner, what I see on their face is joy." So moving on from robotics generally to Ozobot in particular, we want to also answer this question for you: what is Ozobot? We are a robotic platform that makes it simple to teach coding and STEAM and integrate them into all subjects. We're trusted now in over 30,000 K-12 schools to do just that. And of our surveyed users, 95% of them report increased student engagement with Ozobot. That's something we're really proud of. At the very bottom here, you can see a very brief timeline of Ozobot's history, but the gist is we were founded in 2014, and since then have been recognized with various tech and ed tech awards, including the Edison Award and most recently Best of ISTE. So you might wonder, how do we do all of this? Teach coding and STEAM, integrate them into other subjects. And it really comes down to three things. First, our 1-inch robots. Ozobot Evo is Bluetooth enabled and has programmable components. And that brings me to our 2 ways to code or program with Evo. So students can work screen-free with our patented color codes or on screens with our Ozoblockly visual programming language. And that's something that I'll be demoing for you guys hands-on today if you are brand new to Ozobot. And then finally, we've got 500 plus K-12 lessons. So that's where the content integration piece comes in. That's part of what Melissa's going to be covering today. And those lessons also enable you to track student progress. So I am actually going to switch up my camera so that you guys get an overhead view. And I'm going to ask you all to take on the role of students with me and try out our 2 ways to code. So give me 1 second. So you guys should be able to see my desk here with an activity sheet and an Ozobot. I mentioned we're going to try out our 2 ways to code. So we're going to start with our patented color codes. And color codes allow students to start coding completely screen-free just by drawing lines and short sequences of color. So for this activity sheet, my lines are printed, but students can draw those lines themselves, just so you guys know. Color codes build creative confidence while at the same time teaching basic coding concepts like cause and effect and even debugging. So our goal for this activity today is to code Ozobot Evo from the start right here to one of these STEAM subjects. We've got science, technology, engineering, art, and math. Melissa, can I ask you to pick a STEAM subject for me?
Yes, let's do engineering.
Great.
And if I can interrupt really quickly, just in case, if you do want to see Adrian's enlarged screen of what she's modeling, you can click on view and go to the full screen and pin her screen to see a bigger view of it, just for anyone who wants that clarity.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, otherwise it's a tiny thumbnail. Okay, so we're gonna go to engineering. Just so you guys know, there's an entire language of color codes that students can learn, but for this activity, we're just using a handful of direction codes here. And the way direction codes work is they tell Evo what to do at the very next intersection it's going to encounter. So by looking at this activity sheet, you can kind of see that to get to engineering, I want Evo to go left at this first intersection and then right at the second. So those are the codes I'm going to use. And we often get the question whether these are special markers or whether they have special ink. They do not. They have a nice chiseled tip that makes it easy to draw the codes, but you could use Crayola markers or anything else that has these primary colors. So I'm doing my go left code. Sometimes I get talking and then I mess up my color codes. And Evo's going to use optical sensors and a color sensor to both follow the lines and read my codes. So I'll go ahead and power Evo on by pushing this button. And then we'll test out my color codes. Yay, we made it to engineering. So that, of course, is just the first of our 2 ways to code. I also want to show you guys Ozobot. And Ozobot is a device-agnostic visual programming editor. It's actually based on Google's Blockly. I'm going to open up the editor in our shared screen so that you guys can see that as well. It's based around Google's Blockly, but what we did to make it our own was add discrete skill levels. And this is something we like to highlight because even educators who have been using Ozobot don't always know about these. The first level is a pre-reader level. All of the blocks here have visual icons. And then as you advance, we add text to the blocks, but we're also adding block categories and programming principles as you advance. So all the way up to master level 5, where we introduce lists and arrays, things that are taught in high school computer science classes. But we're keeping it simple again for this activity. Our goal right now is to now use Ozobot to code Evo from the start to engineering. And my program's actually already set up to go to engineering, so I'm going to change it up and go to art. So if you guys can see this paper, okay, I'll hold it up. This is broken down into a grid, and these are millimeters on the page. So you can see to get to art, I'm going to go 30 millimeters up the page. And if I read this program almost like a paragraph, it's telling Evo to follow the line to the end of the intersection, move forward, turn left, move forward again, turn right, and move forward so that it ends up at one of those subject areas. So to get to art, I'm going to edit this middle block from 60 millimeters to 30. And then I can just use, this is also something that's relatively new, even for existing users and Ozobot users. I can now use Bluetooth to load code to my Evo. So I'm clicking this programs icon at the top on the right and then connect. That opens a Bluetooth pairing window on my computer. So I just find my Evo and hit pair. And now I am ready to run my program. And great, we made it to art. So that's a really quick, shallow dive into our 2 ways to code. And something that I want to emphasize about that for the group here, especially those of you who already have your bots, you can get a 1-hour training session in those 2 ways to code by going to classroom.ozobot.com and selecting Bot Camp on your dashboard. And for the 2 ways to code, they've driven our adoption in education up to this point, and they have also lent Ozobot our flexibility. So that flexibility includes grade levels between the color codes, which are great for younger students or anyone who's new to coding. Through those skill levels within Ozobot, you can kind of see how we span grade levels from K to 12. But our flexibility also extends to subjects. So something that surprised even us was to learn that 74% of our users are teaching core subjects with Ozobot. So they're teaching math, ELA, science, and just integrating coding and computer science into those. Finally, our flexibility also includes learning styles and instruction. So for learning styles, we've found that, or we've heard from educators that students with behavioral issues, special needs, or mental health challenges, and even in the case of this study, students on the autism spectrum, can have a really good experience with Ozobot. And in terms of instruction, we are flexible so that we can be used for in-person, remote, and hybrid instruction. So next, we're going to look at our remote-friendly lessons that Melissa's going to walk us through. Melissa, do you want me to keep clicking through slides at your prompting?
Yeah, that would be great.
Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, so when COVID began, we launched on our development of our Learn Anywhere lessons. We know that COVID has just turned education upside down. Everyone's in a different scenario. Some are in person, some are hybrid, some are remote. Even within those models, it looks different for everybody. So our team was tasked with creating tools that was most helpful for all teachers, no matter what their circumstances. So our Learn Anywhere lessons overview, we are developing, there's a typo on the slide, 2nd through 8th grade lessons. So our middle school content is coming soon. We're in the midst of developing it now, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. But we do have content for all of these lessons, 2nd through 8th grade, and I'll go over what all of the content includes. Our recommended pacing is 1 lesson per week. And for the younger kids, it's about 30 minutes per activity. When you get older, it's about 45 minutes to an hour, just depending on the developmental appropriateness of asking students to be on task for, a certain amount of time. So all of our content is aligned to standards. So that's Common Core Math, Common Core ELA, NGSS, and CSTA and ISTE. And all of our lessons are aligned with at least one standard from ISTE, CSTA, and then those content standards that I just mentioned. And if we could go, perfect. All of our lessons include a full package of content and resources for you. If you are a teacher that's confident in teaching robotics and computer science, there's a traditional synchronous lesson plan that you can use however you'd like. If you're a teacher that's a little bit more hesitant or you're not really sure how to start or how to approach teaching these lessons, we have a student-facing instructional video for you. That's something that you can use to guide your instruction. It's something you can use and send to students and have them self-pace and self-guide, or you can even use it to extend your teaching, use that as a foundation and then expand and extend based off that video. It's completely up to you. We have a student activity guide that covers everything that's in that instructional video and synchronous lesson plan for any students that might need that accessibility or extra support. But again, all of that's covered in the video, so students don't need it. It's just there in case you have students with special needs. All the activity sheets are included, and then along with the teacher answer key or potential solution, depending on if the activity has a right or wrong solution or multiple solutions. And we can, perfect. So in the Learn Anywhere lesson, again, it's standards aligned. You can use it synchronously or asynchronously. It's completely up to you how you'd like to implement it. The instructional videos are, they're created for self-guided learning. So we cover everything from the objectives of the lesson, the materials that are needed, to what's expected of the students when they finish. We also are explicit in our instructions and walking students through every single part of the lesson so that they can be successful just by watching that video. And we can move on to the next slide. So this is an example of a 5th grade math lesson where, as I like to say, place value and number forms is not the most exciting lesson content. I don't know that, when you walk into a 5th grade math class and you're saying, I'm teaching place value today. Kids are like, woo, yeah, place value. But we've tried as a team to make content learning as fun as possible and as engaging as possible. So with this lesson, what the students are doing is they're choosing color codes for the robot's behavior. So you can see at the start, right after the start, there is a turbo color code, which means the students can differentiate their ability level. If they want their bot to go faster because they know that they've mastered place value and this is just a fun extension opportunity for them, they can put turbo there and the bot will actually travel faster randomly to one of the digits that they've put in at the top in those bubbles. The rest of these color codes are behavior color codes, so they just do fun things for the students to see and interact with. But the idea is that when the bot comes to an intersection, it will randomly choose. So it will randomly choose which way to go, and eventually it will land on a segment where there's a number that corresponds with that segment. And in this lesson, students use those numbers and run the bot multiple times to write a number in standard form, in word form, and in expanded form. So we're really trying to engage students because we know it's really, really hard for them right now. It's not, school is, I have to admit, it's probably not the most fun for students. So we're really trying to get them invested and engaged in their own learning. Let's go ahead and play a quick clip of the video just so you can get the look and feel of it. And this is what your students would be seeing. So this is just one chapter out of the video as an example for you to watch. Ozobot is ready to make a 6-digit number. Are you? We'll place our bot on start. Then we'll watch as it follows the pathway until it gets to a digit. Once it reaches a digit, we will write this digit in the hundreds place under standard form. My bot made it to the number 1. In the first place here, I will write 1. Then we'll repeat this 5 times to program Ozobot to move from start to complete my decimal number. My second number is 0. My third number is 9. Since it's truly random, your bot might choose the same number multiple times. How many digits or places will your number have when you are done? So you can see we explicitly model what we are asking students to do, and we actually guide them through each step of the process so that there's no confusion, it's clear, and they're able to be successful. And we'll go over, I think, a couple more examples of lessons. In second grade, this is an example of an ELA content aligned lesson where students are learning about prefixes and root words. And coding wise, what they're doing is they're filling in a line jump color code, which means that when the bot reaches the end of the line, it actually jumps over that white space. You can see a gap between the top part of the page and the bottom part. It travels over that white space and then looks for another line to follow. So it ends up in the bottom half of the page. Students are guided to write down the prefix that the bot passes by and write it with a root word. So for example, if the bot runs by dis and it goes all the way over to move, the word is dismove. And so that's where students have to recognize, is this a real word or is it not? If it's not, then I need to find a different root word to pair with that prefix to create a real word. So that is our ELA integration. And there is a clip here for you. This will be part of the recording or the deck that we're going to share with you. I don't think we need to watch every single clip, but if you'd like to come back and take a look at it, you're welcome to do that. But we can go on to the next lesson. I just wanted to share a couple innovative ways that we've created lesson content for you as well. In our lesson library, there is STEAM and SEL lessons. One example is our gratitude party, which was created for the Thanksgiving holiday, but it can be taught at any time during the year. If your students need to have some social emotional learning, we have a gratitude party where students recognize and write down the things that they're grateful for. They create some objects to put onto their map, and they celebrate at the end at a gratitude party. And I think last but not least, there's another clip for you to check out once you go back and review the deck. Oh, I did mention that middle school lesson content we are in the process of developing right now. That should be out soon. Middle school teachers have requested series and onboarding to our Ozobot content. So what we are creating as an EDU team is our intro to Ozobot lesson series, where we are covering all the basics of Ozoblockly. Students are learning how to use Ozoblockly, how to program codes, how to debug, how to use variables, all of those basics, concepts, and skills. These lessons are directly tied to CSTA standards so that they're meeting the standards that are for their age group. And once this lesson series is published and complete, we will be creating open-ended challenges and content integrated lessons for our middle school teachers and students. And last but not least, we have some really, really fun and engaging holiday and seasonal lessons. So for those teachers who really love to celebrate the holidays and get their students to have some fun STEAM learning, this is an example of this picture is for Lunar New Year, actually. That was just published last Friday. And Lunar New Year is mid-February this year. So in this lesson, students are programming their bot to go around a Lunar New Year party to collect red envelopes from as many family members as possible in 30 seconds. But we have really great content for Halloween, Thanksgiving, Black History Month, and more. We'll be creating more of those as the year goes along as well. So that is a quick overview of our content. All of our lessons include, again, that instructional video and the student activity guides. We were super intentional about making sure that these materials were accessible for all learners. So we're very particular in designing chaptered videos so that students could self-pace and self-guide. There's auditory and visual guidance, so the video obviously has sound and guides students through, but if students can't access sound, in this window you can see the 2-dot and calibration, that word calibration under the video screen. There's text there for students to read if for whatever reason they can't access the audio instructions. These lessons can be modified or scaffolded to different grade levels as well. If you have students that need to catch up and they're behind grade level wise, you can pull from other grade levels and supplement their learning. If students are ahead and you want to extend their learning, you can always pull from an older grade level as well. We just use the Common Core standards to guide our how we place them in grade levels. And then also for any students that have color vision deficiency, there is a color code chart guide that's specifically there to support those students. And then we give tips in every single lesson for how you can support students with color vision deficiency. And Adrian, I think you're about to click into the lesson library. Would you like me to talk about that, or should I pass it over to you? I think she's on mute.
Classic mistake. I forgot to unmute. I'll cover it if that sounds good. I'll jump from here and just review for you guys where you can find all this great content that Melissa and team have been producing. So I'm actually going to log out. I'm signing in here to Ozobot Classroom. So if you're an educator, you can create a free account here. I do recommend, and I'll get to this in a little more detail later, that you sign in with Google if you are a Google Classroom user, if you're using Google Classroom to manage your student rosters and manage assignments. So I'm going to go ahead and sign in and just show you guys how to access that lesson content. This is my educator dashboard within Ozobot Classroom. Just so you know, I mentioned this earlier, but from right here, you can access Bot Camp. That's that 1-hour teacher training in both of Ozobot's 2 ways to code. So we really recommend starting there before you bring Ozobot to your students. That way you can feel comfortable and confident with both of those 2 ways to code. But then second, and perhaps most importantly, you have access from here to our entire lesson library. A couple things I want to share with you guys about this. We have content in our library that's been developed in-house by Melissa and the EDU team. And then we also have a lot of content that's been created and submitted by the community. So there's a range of content in here. Like Melissa mentioned, all of our Learn Anywhere lessons, those remote-friendly lessons, have those come with a synchronous lesson plan for in-person instruction and that instructional video for remote instruction. And so one thing I want to cover with you beyond what I just did, which was use one of our filters. So let me back up and go over that a little bit more. You can filter for remote-friendly Learn Anywhere lessons, but you can also filter by subject area or grade level. or you can use all of the filters. The other filters that we have include whether you want to access Ozobot content or community content, the duration of the lesson, and more. So I'm going to filter for remote friendly. And here you can see some of the content that Melissa covered today. And this is where you'll also find, like Melissa mentioned, lessons that have to do with holidays or special events that we want to recognize. So there's the synchronous lesson plan within these for in-person instruction, but I also want to show you how these can be used for remote assignments. So I'll actually open up, what's one of the ones you covered today, Melissa? I think number randomizer was one of them, right?
Yes.
Perfect, okay. So here is the full lesson plan covering objectives and outcomes, student materials. Here are the links to that instructional video. So if your school district, say, is using an LMS like Canvas, what educators are doing is taking that link for the instructional video and putting it into Canvas to create an assignment for their students. There's also activity sheets that you'll want to get to your students, whether you're having students print at home or your school is doing printed material pickups. You'll want to work out one or the other of those solutions. So that's for most LMSs, but I do want to mention as well that Ozobot Classroom is fully integrated with Google Classroom. So if you're a Google Classroom user, there's actually a student view that I'll show you how to use. So I'm actually going to go into classes here, and I have previously selected the number randomizer lesson and picked a start date and a due date and assigned this to my class to be completed remotely. So you can see it here under classwork that it's due on the 27th. I'm going to quickly change my screen and then log in as a student so you guys can see how that works. Sorry for the puppy barking. It happens. Okay, so something that was really important to us when we built that Google Classroom integration was that you guys have enough on your plates when you're handling remote or hybrid models. So we didn't want you to have to deal with additional logins and passwords for your students. So students, when you create that assignment on the Ozobot side, your students are going to be logging in with their existing Google Classroom accounts. So this is my inbox as a student. I can see here I've got a new assignment, number randomizer. So they get a notification from Google Classroom just like they typically do. I can open this up and it's going to take me into Google Classroom once I log in as a student. And here I get just brief notes about the lesson, but I'll click on Ozobot Classroom to actually launch the student view and complete my lesson. So from here, from this point onward, students are stepped through their assignment. So I can see here how long this assignment should take. It covers what I'm going to learn, what I need for the assignment. If for whatever reason I don't have activity sheets yet, I can print them from here. And then here are those chaptered videos. Like Melissa mentioned, we've got the visual and auditory instruction here, but also text instruction for students who may need that. So let's say I have clicked through all these videos. I've been working on my assignment as I go. So my next step is to actually submit work. Here, students can upload 1 image or up to 3 images just to show you that they've completed the assignment. If for whatever reason they don't have access to a camera, they can add a comment here, maybe responding to a prompt from you, the educator. What was challenging about the assignment? What did you learn? That kind of thing. But then they'll go ahead and submit. And we know that it's such a challenging time to check in on your students and know where they're at in terms of social emotional well-being. So at the end of every assignment, they're prompted to let you know how they felt about that assignment as well. So now that appears in my completed work, and I'll log back in quickly on the teacher side so you guys can see that submitted work. I'll just refresh. Now I'm back in Ozobot Classroom, logged in as a teacher, and I'm going to click on classwork number randomizer, And I can see that Melissa still owes me her assignment, but Adrian's turned in her assignment. I can see that it made her feel really great. Make notes here for my own purposes and assign her a grade. As part of the Google Classroom integration, I was able to not only import my student roster and assign that lesson, but grades are synced as well. So that's the gist of using these new Learn Anywhere assignments. You can again use them for in-person instruction or use them remotely. And for Google Classroom users, that interactive student view is a great perk of it. So I'll come back to our slides. And I think that brings us to Q&A. I'm going to see what questions we've got waiting for us. We've got one in Q&A that says, can you do this with Ozobot? I wonder what that was in reference to.
I think Sherry said that she has bits.
Ah, okay. And I'm guessing, well, let me run through a couple of things we demoed today. So with Ozobot Bit, you can use both of the two ways to code, and your students can use both of the two ways to code. So you can use color codes, you can use Ozoblockly. Bit is not Bluetooth enabled. So the way I used Bluetooth to load my program to Evo, you won't be able to do that with Bit, but you will be able to flash load. So that's where students hold their robot up to the screen to load a program. So you've still got access to both of our ways to code with Bit. For the lessons that you covered today, Melissa, do you mind speaking to which ones are Bit compatible or could be adapted to be used with Bit?
I believe all of them should be adaptable for Bit because they're color code lessons. It's going to be our Ozoblockly lessons that might vary because of the sound and the Bluetooth connectivity.
Yeah.
But the ones that I went over today should be Bit compatible.
Great. And then Doreen asked, you send these home with virtual students? I have a class set, so this is not feasible. So if you have one classroom set, say it's 12 or 18 Ozobots, and yeah, you probably have around 30 students in your classroom. So if you are interested, we have a program. I'll actually get to this slide really quickly. Our new hybrid program is all about going one-to-one with Ozobots so that you have enough to send Ozobots home to your students when they are working at home. If you say have a remote model right now or even a hybrid model where some students are at home. If this isn't feasible for you, I do recommend that you still reach out to our team and request a quote or more information at ozobot.com. That's because we have a comprehensive funding and grant tool, and we are very eager to partner with you guys to help you find funding sources. So that funding and grant tool includes samples of successful grants that teachers have written and actually received for Ozobots. It also includes information about the CARES Act and our eligibility for the CARES Act, plus a template letter that you can forward to your superintendent, for example, just advocating for them to release some portion of your CARES Act funds for an Ozobot STEAM program. So those are a couple of tips for if you don't have enough Ozobots to send them home to students. Those are some ways you can hopefully expand your program. I also want to mention, if that still isn't feasible for you, we still want you to feel supported, of course. So if you go to our website, Melissa, I'm thinking that the Ozoblockly challenges are another great tool for Doreen in particular. So if you go to ozobot.com and go to the create section and then click on challenges. Our Ozoblockly challenges include Ozotown and Shape Tracer 1 and 2, and these have a virtual robot. So for each level, there's 10 levels for each one of these, so 30 levels total. And students are actually programming in this little simulator in the upper right a virtual robot. So that could be a great way to keep using Ozobot even while some students are at home. Let's see. Joy says, I homeschool, but it looks like I can just pull lessons that would be applicable to what we are doing. Any homeschool specific tips? Melissa, can I let you take that one?
Yeah, I'm wondering if you have multiple students in your homeschool model, or just your own students or children for your homeschool. Yeah, Joy, if you could let us know in the chat, that would be great. But I'm thinking there's really great opportunities to have your students debug, or your child debug, and just thinking about problem solving and the basics of the bot. I know we have some introductory webinars showing you how to use the Ozobot, how to calibrate, and just having your students and kids think through those problem solving challenges. Even as a teacher, I know it's so hard when students are struggling and you want to give them the answer, but there's so much beauty and there's so much growth from you as an adult saying, I might not know the answer, or can you solve it a different way? I think there's a lot of opportunities for those types of discussions, like especially if you have thoughts on how to debug or how to program something and your student or your child has a different way. There's so much beauty in that discussion, and that's so meaningful, and it really gets to the heart of STEAM. So I would really encourage a lot of those conversations rather than, oh, here, take the bot, code it. It's really more about the thinking and the thought process behind it. So I would encourage you to yeah, have those opportunities with your student and your child.
And Melissa, can I ask a follow-up question? This is Cassandra, everyone. I'm part of the Ozobot team and moderating the chat. Would you recommend that people who are homeschooling create an Ozobot classroom account, or
it could be, yeah, it could be really helpful. Ozobot Classroom is free for you to kind of track what lessons you've done with your child. I think it would be a really helpful tool because you can save those lessons. You can print directly from there. If you're not ready to do a lesson today or tomorrow with your student or your child, you can save it for later and just easily come back to that list. So I would highly recommend creating that Ozobot Classroom account just to help keep you organized and have to easily have access to all of the content and materials.
Great. And then I think there are two questions that I think we can answer with one answer. Cherie, I believe, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, asked if she can use Ozoblockly with Bit. And there was also a question, I've had trouble in the past pairing my bots with Bluetooth. Is there another way to pair? So both with Bit, and if you're having some Bluetooth challenges, you can use flash loading in Ozoblockly. So here I am back in the Ozoblockly editor, and I went to this programs icon in the upper right to use Bluetooth. But again, if you have Bit or don't want to use Bluetooth in your classroom, you can go to this flashing section down here. And this has a link to help to teach you more, but essentially what students are going to be able to do is hold their Ozobot up to this screen, up to one of these shapes that looks like the shape of a robot, and then they'll click load, and they'll be able to flash load that way. So skips the whole Bluetooth loading step. Is there any type of insurance for broken bots? We do have a warranty, so reach out to our support team, support@ozobot.com. And Shelly also asked if there are any Spanish lessons. I don't want to get your hopes up. I don't think there's a ton, but you are welcome to create and submit your own Spanish lessons, but let's see what we can find as well.
There is a Dia de los Muertos lesson. It's not in Spanish, but it teaches about the holiday. So that's kind of aligns, but it's not in the Spanish language.
Yeah. Great. And yeah, it looked like we also have something for grades 7 through 8 submitted by a member of the community. And Tracy, I think you were the one asking about Bluetooth. You said it might be the version of Windows that you have. That is quite possible. We got a question, how can we turn Evo's proximity sensors on/off? That's a great question. Something that we introduced, let's see, I think it was a little over a year ago, was classroom mode for our bots, so that you can turn off the proximity sensors, and it also reduces the amount of sounds and different fidgets the bot makes, just so it works better for lessons. If you are using Ozobot Classroom and you go to devices and update your robots here, we've made it really easy for you to connect to all of your robots and update them at once using an Ozobot Classroom communicator. So if you do that and update within Classroom, your bots are going to be automatically put into classroom mode so that those proximity sensors get turned off, and you can use any of the lessons that way. So hopefully that answered your question. Let's see, does it matter if you buy your Ozobot third party, or is the classroom lessons only for purchases from the company direct? Great question, Joy. Any educator can sign up for Ozobot Classroom. So even if you bought your Ozobots from a third party, you can just go to classroom.ozobot.com and sign up. You get a free account. And I think that's all our questions. Ozobot team, is there anything I'm missing? Oh, we just got another question. What is a proximity sensor? There was a question I saw earlier as well, somewhere in the chat, about the differences between Evo and BIT. So that actually gets into the question of what's a proximity sensor. You're gonna have to forgive me because I'm not an engineer, so the way I'll describe this will not be in their language. But basically, so Ozobot BIT was our original Ozobot, and then Evo was introduced more recently. And the core differences between the two are that Evo is Bluetooth enabled, so it's got a Bluetooth antenna that has a 30-foot range. We use that to make updates and loading Ozoblockly code really seamless. And then Evo also has some more programmable features than BIT. So with BIT, you can program things like its wheels and motor, but with Evo, it's also got these proximity sensors around the bot and a speaker, a built-in speaker that BIT doesn't have. So you can see in Ozoblockly, actually, right where just above the skill levels, you can toggle between BIT, if you've got BIT, and then Evo. And so you'll notice that as I toggle between those two, with Evo, there's sounds and sensors. So just more things you can do with your Ozoblockly programming with Evo. Proximity sensors are infrared sensors that sense an obstacle or object near the bot. So to give you a sense of what you can do with that, you can have Evo, I'll go to some different level here, level 3. So you can have Evo sense if there's an object behind it and then do something in response to that, like turn around 180 degrees or light up red, for example. Hopefully that answered your question. If you sent your Ozobots to your students already, is there a way to manage those sensors remotely? Yes, it's a little bit of a workaround, but your students would be able to use, let me see here. Actually, it might depend on whether you have Google Classroom, but I think we have a landing page students can go to complete an update. Let me get that. Sorry, one second, I'm gonna look for that link.
And while you look for that link, Adrian, I think Joy had another question. Are all Evos the same, or are there different versions? And so all Evos they all have the same functionality and have the same, they're able to be coded the same way through color codes and Ozoblockly. It would be BIT and Evo that are different. They're two different versions. And let us know if you want us to clarify that further, Joy.
I'm having trouble finding that link for students, but we will get that and put it into the slides before we send the slides around, if that sounds good. Sorry about that. Okay, so I think that brings us to, well, we have a couple minutes left, our giveaway. Cass, do we have a giveaway winner? Or do we need to pick a number?
We'll have to pick a number between 1 and 19.
I'm gonna pick 13.
Let me click on over and see who that is. That is Molly Ring. Yay, Molly.
Yay, Molly. And should she email you, Cassandra, to claim her prize?
Yes, I will post my email in the chat. Email Cassandra@ozobot.com to claim it.
Great. Thank you. And we covered this. So just to wrap up, see, these are some of the links and assets and resources we've covered today. If you need robots, you can request a demo or a quote at ozobot.com. If you want to use Ozobot virtually or just don't have bots at all or don't have enough to send home, we do recommend, again, those Ozoblockly challenges. Those have that robot simulator. So you can get those at ozobot.com/create/challenges. You can also get a free copy of that Ozobot funding and grants tool I mentioned. So again, that's got actual samples of successful grants teachers have written, as well as CARES Act info. You can find that at ozo.bot/funding. And then for those of you who already have bots, you can get started now with Ozobot Classroom. It's free for educators to sign up. Just sign up at classroom.ozobot.com. We really recommend starting with Bot Camp. That's the training just for you, and then diving in and exploring lessons and finding hopefully some of those lessons that Melissa shared today. And that wraps up our time. We do have a couple more minutes and I see more questions coming in, so I'm happy to keep going if you are, Melissa.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. Let's see. So here's one of the questions, sorry. So to do a virtual class, all the students would need a Google account and then they could log on to Ozobot Classroom. What devices could they use to have access? Examples, iPad, laptop, etc. Okay, so your students do not have to have Google Classroom. If you use Google Classroom already to manage your student rosters and manage assignments, then that's great. You can import your student rosters into Ozobot, assign lessons from there, and then your students get that interactive student view we showed. If you don't use Google Classroom already, then let's say you use Canvas or some other LMS, you can still create an Ozobot Classroom account for yourself, find those remote-friendly lessons, and if you're assigning work to be done virtually or remotely, just grab that instructional video link and put that into Canvas or whatever platform you're using to communicate with your students. Because those instructional videos starring Melissa go through step-by-step how to complete the assignment. So you really just have to get them that video link and then get the activity sheets to your students as well. And for devices they can use for student view, definitely Chromebooks and laptops of that kind of average size. I believe it's also going to show up on an iPad for now. Looking at the next question, I see over 700 students a week between F2F and remote, not face-to-face and remote. Not possible to get enough to cover those at home, 47%. We'll look into the virtual only options for now.
And if I can make a recommendation there, Adrienne, I'm not sure what grade levels you see, Doreen, but we have a webinar that we hosted last summer with Emma Noonviller, who is a toddler and preschool teacher in New Jersey. And when her class went remote, she wasn't able to send Ozobots home with her students, but she got really, really creative in how she still delivered computer science and robotics education with her students. Let me see if I can find the link to that, but you can definitely find that on our webinar page. You can still do really meaningful learning and really meaningful modeling for your students, even if they don't have bots in hand. So I'll take a look for that and post that information in the chat if that's helpful.
Great. And we got a question to place the link to get started in the chat. Cass or Heather, do you mind dropping that in there? You may have already, so ignore me.
Is that the getting started guide for how to assign remote lessons and in-person lessons?
One that we mentioned, so it might be Classroom.
Okay, I'll get it.
And Jahira, we got the link for, sorry about the delay for that, that your students can use to update their EVOs at home. So we'll drop this into the chat, but just so you know, it's ozobot.com/support/evo-update. Okay. Oh yeah, for Bot Camp. The link for Bot Camp is classroom.ozobot.com/help/botcamp. So I'll drop that in as well. Cool. I think that's all our questions. So thank you everyone for attending today. We really appreciate you taking the time, and we know this is a super challenging time for you and your students. So thank you for being with us. Like Melissa mentioned at the very top of the webinar, you'll be receiving, if you've signed up for Ozobot emails, the recording and link to the slides. And just in case, if not, you can always go to our website, ozobot.com, go to educate and then calendar, and you'll find not only upcoming webinars, but recordings and slides for past ones as well. So that's all under past webinars. And I just wanted to mention that coming up tomorrow, we've got a really great webinar where a couple of our certified educators, are joining us, Jen, Nikki, and Jessica, and they're covering tools for increasing participation and passion for learning in 2021. So join us for that, and we're going to have co-hosted webinars, one of those each month, and we'll be doing Ozobot 101 each month as well. So if you know other educators who could benefit from this introduction to Ozobot, please send them our way. Thanks, you guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.